Hey there, I know I got weird stuff going on with my hair, but between you and me, we're just gonna pretend everything's fine, because right now it's kind of at that length where I can't really do anything about it, and no matter how much I try to stick it down, it just sticks back up. No matter how much water, no matter how much hair care product, no matter what I do, it just sticks back up. So we're gonna pretend everything's normal. Now let's get on with the video. Welcome back to Tabletop Glory. My name is Graham Johnson, and today we're going to be talking about these large decals. Now, these are from a company, gotta double check the name here. These are the Modeler's Choice for 21st Century by Microscale Decals. These are specifically the ones that are meant for HO scale trains. Now, is that the right scale for Warhammer and D&D and stuff like that? No, it's not. Also, this stuff is going to be kinda modern-ish. If you want something that's a bit more akin to Warhammer, you're gonna have to make it yourself, but you can at least scale stuff around in things like Photoshop and Krita and things like that, and make your own decals. I do recommend, however, maybe starting with something like this and then scaling your decals to match something like this. As you can see, compared to a D&D figure, they're pretty big, and applying really large decals like this can be a little bit tricky. Now, what I tend to like to do is cut them out and then directly slide them off onto the model. And I'm going to show you that today. Now, we are going to be working with flat surfaces. We're not going to be working with anything round, but it's kind of the same thing as long as you're not working with a ball. And the reason why is because you'll end up with a lot of stuff bunching up, and you'll have to cut and then modify with paint, and that's kind of a bit advanced for decals of this size, especially if you're new to applying decals. Now, I've done a 101 video before about applying decals, and I'll go ahead and link that here. Now, that said, this is going to be a pretty quick video. I'm going to be applying the decals and then doing a little bit of mild weathering over it, as well as touching up a few other things on the bunkers that you're going to be seeing in this video. So this is me doing some finalization for these bunkers before they go out for the commission that they are a part of. And please keep in mind that this is not an example of the quality of my work, as I was under very strict instructions on the minimalistic style that was requested by the commissioner. But that said, I do have a copy of these that I can make my own from, so going forward you may be seeing more of these in the future on other projects, so keep an eye out for that. I have my wet palette here. Now, I have seen people have great success using their wet palette for stuff like this before. In the past, I've just used a square sponge soaked in warm water for big stuff. For little stuff, you can kind of just dump them into a cup of hot water with some kind of tweezers or something, and just kind of like dip them straight into the water, and that'll work just fine. We shouldn't need any microsol or microset. And you can see we're keeping things kind of soupy. And we are going to decide which decals we want to cut out and put on our bunker here. Now, I am going to be applying some small ones to the inside, one large one to the outside of one, and two large ones to the outside of the other. I'm also going to get some other water set decals for some smaller Imperial and things like that to decorate around the doors and things of that nature. And I won't be talking through those as much as I talk through the big one. But something that you're probably going to want is you're going to want a brush of a pretty substantial size. This is a size 6, and this is probably the smallest brush you're going to want to use for something like this. We are going to be using quite a lot of water in today's video, so having a nice big brush that you can use to soak up excess or deposit excess is going to be really nice. Now, if you've got one of these calligraphy style brushes, that's going to hold a ton of water and may be really nice for both of those applications as well. But again, the larger the brush that you have available to you, the more success you're probably going to have when dealing with large decals. Now, if one does rip, we'll cover that when and if it happens. If it doesn't rip, again, go back to the previous video that I've done on Decals 101 where I did have a large decal rip, and you can see exactly how I handle that. Now, the quality of that video is not necessarily the quality of this video, but that information is still rock solid. Now, you're going to want to get yourself a good pair of scissors for this, just because it's going to make your life a little bit simpler. So we're going to decide which decals we want, and I think I want this one right here. So I got to decide if I want to try to cut in and around this little fly decal or not, and I think I'm going to switch to a smaller pair of scissors for that. But for now, we're just going to roughly cut out around the one we want, doing our best to avoid any decals that are around it. Now, the deeper into the jaws of the scissors, the more control you're going to have with those scissors. So if you're trying to cut really close around this the first time, then you're going to go ahead and want to cut as deep into those jaws as you can. And there we go. We didn't need to switch to a smaller pair. Now, it's absolutely crucial you drop it on the ground exactly like I did. But we want to try and cut this down as much as possible, because these decals tend to look less realistic the more excess that is on them. So if we can cut down a lot of this excess now, that is going to do us a lot of favors. One last piece of advice I will give is to try and avoid some sharp angles if possible. There's a few spots on here where I have cut things at a sharp angle, but if you can avoid it, that will also help you to get a more realistic finish. The trick is going to be keeping it warm, but I don't want it so warm that it warps the container, you know? So if you got a metal baking tray, you might want to put your sponge in a metal baking tray. And we can see it immediately starts trying to curl, which is a decent sign. And I'm just gonna roll this over the decal. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I don't know the age of this decal. And sometimes water slide decals get really fragile with age. And you can see right about here, if it looks good when I zoom in, you'll notice that the decal has started to peel already, in the sense that the color is missing already from the decal. So this is something you have to keep an eye out for if you're using really old decals from an old model. So we're going to pre-soak the area. Now, depending upon the materials that you're working with, you don't want to use too much water because you can just destroy the surface of your model. This is styrofoam, so I should be relatively okay, but I might reactivate the paint, I might reactivate some of the pigments, and so I want to be kind of careful about that. So I like to use a pair of tweezers, but you can use whatever you have available to you. And right there we have, yeah, it's just breaking up. So yeah, we might not be able to save this. I'm gonna do my best, but we might have to just clean it off and try a different decal. Yeah, it's just breaking up. Yep, there it goes. Okay, so this decal, it's not worth trying to save. It's pretty much entirely disintegrated at this point. Now, this water is like cold. It's not hot. Personally, I prefer hot water because I think it makes the decal transfer better, but this decal is so old, it's just not working with us. So what I may need to do is I may need to make a copy of this decal sheet and print it onto modern decal paper. Now, luckily for myself, I saw the potential of this coming, and I have already photocopied this sheet with no altercations, no missing pieces. I've already taken care of that. And I have that saved so that we can go ahead and make a copy of this. And I will inform the gentleman who commissioned me that this didn't work, but we're going to try making a copy on brand new decal paper and see how that goes. Hopefully, with a bit of luck, everything will work out.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
And one trip to a copy store later, we have this. Now, comparing them to the original, as you can see, the originals are a lot more vibrant. Also, this blue backing is meant to be clear. Obviously, this greenish blue backing is not going to be clear. Now, I could take this to a higher end print shop than where I had it done and actually get this done clear, because the paper I used is supposed to be clear. However, they were printing from a JPEG instead of printing from a lossless image. And because they were printing from a JPEG, obviously they can't have a clear background with a JPEG. Now, I did have to seal it, so I did a test to see how well this works. Honestly, not bad. Like, genuinely, honestly, not bad. That has sealed down really nicely, so we're going to continue forward. I did want to use this one originally, but because this is no longer a clear background, I have to cut out the individuals as close as I can. So the more square the image is, the easier it's going to be for me to deal with it. So these bottom two are now going to be excellent choices. And this one right here is probably going to be a pretty solid choice. we'll have to see how these first two go. I'm only going to show myself doing this orange and black one, and then I will do the others off camera, but if I have a rip in one of these, then I will record how I'm going to fix those. But yes, I'm very happy with this, but, and this is a big but, I need to say this. Do not copy decals with the intention of selling them. You don't own them. If you're going to copy a decal, you're doing it for preservation's sake, like what we were doing with these decals, because they're so old they need to be preserved. Or you're doing them because you have a large-scale project and buying 20 decal sheets would be insane. But you cannot sell these. The second you sell them, this becomes illegal. If you're doing it for your own projects, that's one thing, but you cannot sell them. I need to make that abundantly clear. Like, that is the difference in the moral high ground here, and I'm sure someone is going to argue with me in the comments and say that me copying them for my own reasons is a moral gray area, and there is an argument to be made there, but yes, you cannot sell these. You don't own them. I can't make copies and sell these. I can make copies and use them for myself, and that's about it. I cannot find this exact decal sheet outside of new old stock, so I don't believe they make these anymore, which is why I'm calling it preservation. So that said, I will continue to use them for myself, but I will not sell them. So let's go ahead and crack on and go ahead and get this orange one out of here. Now, there are some details around the edges of the orange decal that we're not going to worry about. If I was doing this on the original, I would worry about them, but I'm not going to worry about them on this copy. If I want to get super fancy and technical, I can always get some new copies made later on that have a transparent background, and I will worry about that then. But for now, I want to go ahead and just get this as best as I can. I want to try and leave a bit of the black lining of the decal, but I want to remove as much of the white lining as I can. And I may have to go back in afterward and add some black paint to help hide anything that I miss. Alright. Now, we need to be careful not to over soak this, so I'm actually going to soak the spot on the model where I want it first. And then we're going to soak the decal afterward. Now, because of the nature of this style of water slide decal, we really don't need to soak the front. We just need to soak the backing paper. So, yeah, I want to hold it down so it doesn't curl. Now, hopefully once we get it on the model, it's not going to want to curl. Hopefully it'll be soaked through enough that it'll be fine. We may have to coax this one off just because of how big it is, as opposed to a normal slide, which is why you saw me trying to drag it with my thumbs. And that's hopefully gonna stop it from ripping. And if we gotta grab the backing paper and pull it out with a pair of tweezers, well, we kind of just hold things in place with a thumb, and then we can kind of roll it out with a wet brush if we get lucky here. Yeah, so we want to use water to smooth it out before it dries, and kind of massage it into position and get as many air bubbles out of it as we can. I wanted to get that one on the level, but I don't think we are, just because of how large it is. Because so much of it has to be soaked in order for it to pivot. Hopefully we can grab the edge of it here without ripping it. And you can kind of only really do this with these big ones. Yeah, we don't want to screw with that too much, or we are just going to rip it. It's a lot nicer than it was, and we can kind of finish coaxing it in place with our finger. And there we go. And then what we're going to do is, with a relatively dry brush, we're going to try and get all these ripples out. Those ripples are a mixture of air and water trapped underneath the decal. Now, we're not going to be able to get 100% of them out, but what we're going to want to use is, we're going to want to use something like Microsol or Microset, and that is going to soften the decal up and cause it to dry a little slower so that it doesn't crinkle up as it dries. And this is really the like magic money stuff going on here with these really big decals. You really can't, you can, but it's real tricky to do these big ones without something like this. So you can see it's already flattening out that decal quite nicely. Now, this is removing the protective layer that we had to spray on top of this before we cut it out, which is part of the instructions for making these decals. So we want to be quick, or we're going to start to pull the ink up. So once we get it in place, we push all these air bubbles out, and then we kind of just have to leave it. If we play around with it too much, we are going to destroy this decal on here and not be able to remove it. So at this point, we just want to stop playing with it and just leave it and let it dry. And there we have it, guys. I know this was a bit of a short video, but I kind of needed a bit of a refresher to kind of get me back in the mood for content creation and not just constantly knocking out this Trench Crusade stuff over and over again. Join us next month, where we're going to be talking about how to do craters and shell impacts for Trench Crusade and other games like it. And in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and learned something. May your display case always be filled and your pile of shame never run empty. Until next time, bye-bye!